Welcome to A Kind Life. Today I'm very grateful to have Sarah Chen here. How are you going, Sarah?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. Thanks, Alicia, for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I do love that you actually approached me and you said that you'd had a listen to one of my podcasts, and I had checked out your page. I hadn't actually come across yourself, the Compassionate Creamery. So really excited that you reached out to me. Thank you for doing that.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's really
So
cool.
tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
Yeah, so I make cheese. I am a chemical engineer by background, worked in the corporate world for a couple of years, and through COVID realized that I wanted to work on something that was more morally and ethically aligned. And I guess I've been vegan for quite some time now, and during a period of, I guess, almost like over 7 years now, I noticed that I had more and more people coming up to me, asking me for a really good vegan cheese recommendation, and it was always just quite hard to give them like a good accessible option that was readily available at supermarkets or where they usually shopped, but they were also the same people that were raving about how amazing their morning oat milk lattes were. And so I thought maybe there was an opportunity to sort of combine the two and see what we could come up with. And so yeah, Compassion Creamery basically crafts an cream cheese made from 100% Australian grown oats. So we make our own oat milk in-house, and we curdle and culture it very similar to how dairy cheese is made. So yeah, it's cultured, fermented, made without any coconut oils or starches, nuts, soy, etc., etc. So, yeah.
It's pretty exciting because, everyone, like you said, everyone always asks about a good vegan cheese, whether you are vegan or you're looking to try different vegan products. So it's pretty exciting. I'd imagine that you'd be pretty popular in your friends and family sort of circle of group to be able to go to events and have something that you can take as well.
Yeah. I I tend to challenge myself in the different ways that I use the cream cheese, because I guess it's like what immediately comes to mind is, for most people, is usually like bagels or spreading it on toast, or that sort of thing. But it's honestly such a versatile product. Like, you could bake it into cheesecakes, you can fold it into pastas, or I have a chef friend who piped it into zucchini flowers and deep fried with it. Like, it's like pretty versatile. So like my Instagram, for instance, has a few of those recipes that we've come up with. And yeah, I guess my friends have been unfortunate in the fact that they've had to test the very beginning trials of the not very good batches, because it's taken me like 1.5 years of R&D, like 250 versions or something. And yeah, now I guess they're on the happier receiving end of things, so that's good.
Would you always have called yourself a foodie, or, is it more your chemical engineering background that led you to this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've always I've always loved the aspect of food that sort of brings people together. There's something that is so grounding and wholesome about just having loved ones and friends and gathering together and having just a really wholesome meal. And yeah, I guess I'm sort of someone who loves cooking for people more than I enjoy eating sometimes, which is quite strange. But yeah, no, definitely the chemical engineering side has also helped in terms of like figuring out the nitty gritties of the formulation, because it is quite it's yeah, like I've approached them quite with quite scientific rigor. And of course also scaling up production has also been a big technical challenge. So the chemical engineeringness has had to come out there as well. Yeah.
And you said that, it was quite a change for you. Like, I'm guessing when you studied chemical engineering, this probably wasn't what you thought you were going to be using it for.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, the thing is that most people don't even know what chemical engineering is, and I certainly was that way when I applied for the degree, which sounds rather bizarre, but yeah, I'll explain it very briefly. But in essence, what chemical engineers do is, say for instance, if you have a piece of paper or your iPhone or car tire or whatever it is that requires some sort of manufacturing process. So basically what we do is we figure out how to turn raw materials into its final product. So it could be in the food industry, it could be like how to make wine, how to turn grapes into wine. And so it's like every single step. So we need to crush the grapes, press out the juice, ferment the juice into wine, add fining agents, et cetera, like every single step, how much heat needs to be applied, how much pressure, what the volume of the tank is, all of that stuff requires chemical engineers to be working with like other engineers to figure out each of the steps. And so, yeah, by doing that, that degree, a lot of what was available in the Australian market is often things to do with utilities. So water engineering, for instance, or petroleum, if you go to the western side of Australia, oil, gas mining, a lot of those things. And I don't know, it just never felt quite aligned with what I kind of wanted to do. And yeah, I guess I just ended up falling into a corporate job, in one of those jobs that everyone, well, I guess nobody really knows what they do. In other words, I was a management consultant, but it's just one of those jobs where it's like, oh, okay, cool, you're a management consultant. That's cool. But yeah, I guess found my feet afterwards, and here we are.
Yeah. And so where in your journey does your vegan story sort of begin? I'm guessing it was before you started Compassion Creamery.
Yeah, it was ages ago. Oh, I mean, I most very recently met a vegan that had been vegan for 20 years, so I'm definitely not that long of a vegan, but it has been over 7 years now, I think. So it was around about the time when I first started university, and yeah, I noticed that I I was suffering from really bad acid reflux at the time, and I just didn't realize that it was linked to the amount of dairy that I was consuming. So I'm actually Kiwi. I'm from New Zealand, and back home we eat a crap ton of dairy. Like it's like you pretty much just inject it into our veins at this point. And so after doing, well, also like being the nerd that I am, was after doing a whole bunch of research, I realized that dairy is really inflammatory. Like now that I realize, now looking back in retrospect, every time I think about the dairy industry, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just such a strange concept to be like drinking the lactations of another mammal, like as an adult human. It's just so bizarre in the first place, let alone like all of the atrocities that happens inside the dairy industry. But yeah, I guess over a period of a few months, I cut out more and more animal products until one day I was pretty much plant-based. And then after continuously learning about the ethical sides, and I think back then Earthlings was the only documentaries around that really scared the living crap out of me. And so yeah, I guess it was kind of like I was convinced that not only was veganism the right choice for me health wise, but it's more than that. It's like a philosophy, and I guess like just way of living, honestly. It's yeah.
And so were you living in New Zealand when you went vegan, or were you here in Australia?
I just moved over Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I travel a little bit to New Zealand just because I love it. It's beautiful over there. And I've always sort of wondered whether I feel like, there's some great food, but I feel like it's probably not quite as progressive as we are here. So I've always wondered, how people find going vegan over there.
Yeah, honestly, when veganism clicks, I think it's like you'll go to the lengths of the earth to make it work, right? I do have my cousins actually, they've been vegan for God, probably like 10, 12 years now. And yeah, in New Zealand, they know basically every single vegan option, every single cafe, restaurant, supermarket in New Zealand. Not New Zealand, sorry, in Auckland, which is where we're from. But yeah, I guess it's like where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so after you went vegan, did you sort of look into doing different things, I guess, whether you could say like activism or, like creating recipes and things to help other people, understand veganism and look into it?
Honestly, I'll have to admit I was a uh pretty closeted vegan at the very beginning. Um it was a mixture of just my personality not being very like outwardly expressive. It's I've definitely improved over the years, thankfully. Also, like being a startup founder, that kind of comes with the job as well. But also, I guess I was just trying to get through a engineering degree, which is not the easiest thing to do. And I guess, yeah, just a combination of those. But I can definitely understand the hesitancy to become outspoken about a lot of these issues, but the repercussions almost of not speaking up and staying silent are almost like too grave to even consider, really. So yeah, I guess when it came time for me to actually, step away from my full-time job and take this leap, it was kind of like my final thought was, I'll really hate myself if I didn't give this a proper crack. That was sort of the deciding moment for me to be like, yeah, I really need to give this a proper go.
So tell us about that startup journey.
Yeah. So I left I went on a leave of absence from my full-time job around about a year ago, just under a year ago. And yeah, it was really strange at first to like go from such a structured daily routine full of like, started full of meetings and teams and managers and, layers upon layers of corporate structure, to no one but myself sitting on my bedroom floor staring at this whiteboard being like, what the heck am I doing? Yeah, and also being in our little R&D facility and just being like, what the heck am I doing right now? Just messing around with bags of oats that at the time we were buying from like Woolies and Coles and everything. So yeah, since then, I guess the first biggest oh my gosh moment was when one of the cafes called me up after I gave them a sample, and they were like, yeah, we actually will put you on our menu. And I was like, oh my God, holy crap, this is actually becoming real. Like, people are actually going to pay me for it. Like, this is crazy. And yeah, I guess like it's been slow and steady as of so far. I've everything so far has been pretty much bootstrapped. Just yeah, in terms of financials, and we're in the process of scaling up our production, which is both scary and also exciting. But yeah, hopefully that means that we'll be able to distribute and provide oat cream cheese to a wider audience.
Because at the moment you're in a few cafes in New South Wales, in Sydney, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we're mostly in the sort of inner west areas. So it's cafes, restaurants, catering companies. We started doing corporates a few months ago. So Canva, for instance, the design company, their head office in Surrey Hills. So that was a really fun morning that they invited us in to do a bagel breakfast session. That was really fun. But yeah, that's at the moment where we're wanting to scale up into retail, which is a whole nother beast in itself. So yeah, slowly.
And so you mentioned that, you went through a whole phase of R&D and then into getting it into your first cafe. Like, what was that sort of timeline, just to get an understanding of the process?
Oh yeah, so it probably, whilst I was working full time, I'd started the R&D, so that was probably around half a year, and then probably took maybe another solid 4 months of like daily R&D to get it to a point where I was confident enough that every batch would be semi-consistent. And even after I started supplying, it still kept on changing. Like I was still tweaking it, iterating it. Until like I think at like around batch 250, I was like, okay, I think I'm pretty confident now that I can make this work.
Yeah. I'm guessing there would have been some challenges along the way.
Oh, 100%. As do you mean in terms of the formulation?
Yeah, everything, just even in starting up the business
oh my gosh. It's been nothing but challenges. I guess that's the thing about doing a food product startup. Because when you have a physical product, your biggest risk, one of your biggest risks is supply chain, which if anything in these couple of years has taught us, is extremely vulnerable when exposed to something like COVID. And so I'm not sure if you know, at the moment there's actually a national shortage of Australian oats, which is almost purely driven by the demand of oat milk, which is honestly like, vegan me is like, oh my gosh, that's like the coolest thing ever in the world. Like I love this for us. But this Sarah is like, oh my god, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Yeah, like there are just so many things that like this is just one example of things that like I knew supply chain would be a risk, but I was thinking like more international, like for instance, some of the machines that I'm importing from overseas. Oh my gosh, okay, that's going to take a really long time. I did not expect an Australian grain that is usually abundant in supply would be something that would become such a big risk factor for my business. So yeah, honestly, I've been incredibly fortunate to have had the guidance of so many mentors and advisors who, often it's not about trying to, step over a pothole or, sidestep one, but just being aware of its presence in the first place makes a world of difference. So, I've been very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah. And I'm guessing there's been some real celebrations along the way as well. I definitely wanted to mention, that I'm not sure how recently it was, but you have been mentioned in the 25 under 25 female entrepreneurs. Was that in the last 6 months?
Yeah, probably just, I think it was at the very end of last year. It was, yeah, I honestly don't know how it happened, because all the other accounts were, much larger, much more established, and their brands were, like really awesome. But in essence, Instagram Australia wanted to recognize 25 of I guess under 25 in terms of age entrepreneurs of businesses within Australia, and yeah, somehow mine slipped through. So that was really cool. That was really, really cool.
I think you're very modest. I don't think you can just say it slipped through. I don't think that's how that happened.
No. I mean, I guess it's one thing to because yeah, I guess because I'm so close to the business that I can identify like every single misstep or risk or thing that could potentially go wrong. But it's like outward recognition is always lovely, but it's honestly, like, yeah, it can be viewed as superfluous as well. Like it's not gonna make my business at the end of the day. Like I still, yeah, but no, it was very, very lovely to have been recognized by them. It was really nice.
I noticed in that you were quite honest or open, transparent about the fact that you almost sort of felt like you had imposter syndrome. Is that so? I'd be interested to understand.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. So I guess imposter syndrome is kind of just feeling that you're sort of underqualified or not not capable of executing potential things or offering your sort of expertise, even though that may not be the case at all. And sorry, like you're probably going to have like psychologists or people being like, that's not the right definition. But I guess it's kind of like, yes, I have a background in chemical engineering. Yes, I did work in that sort of very businessy corporate kind of world, and that has given me quite a unique perspective of how to run the startup. I do think that's the case, but there are so many things in the startup world or just in the business world, in the food world, that I am not very well versed in. And like it's not to say that you have to have all bases covered, but just being like being almost having to have this idea of like you constantly know what you're doing. I have trouble with over promising. I think that's the thing, and it could be like I've heard that a lot of women have trouble with it. I feel like honestly a lot of engineers have trouble with it because we always try to under promise over deliver, whereas like a lot of people in the startup world kind of do the opposite. It's like, oh yeah, no, we'll be making $10 million in revenue by next year, and it's like, oh my god, like if I actually said that out loud, I'd be freaking out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I guess it's something like it's something that I think a lot of people honestly experience. Like after I made that post, and a lot of the time when I do make posts that are more vulnerable or show are more transparent, I suppose, I end up getting so many messages or like comments underneath being like, oh my gosh, I can totally relate. And it's like, well, if everyone can relate, surely we should be opening the dialogue and normalizing all of this stuff. Because I guess like one section of Compassion Creamery, the idea of compassion is like, yes, it's for the animals, of course it is. It's making sure that we look after our environment and the world that we share with all of these incredible beings. But it's also this idea of like self-compassion as well, because quite frankly, if we don't look after ourselves, we're performing at a subpar level, and who's going to look after ourselves if we don't look after ourselves, right? So
yeah,
sorry, that was a very butchered answer, but hopefully you can
Not at all. But that is something that I really do love, like both looking through your social media and also on the website is, that aspect of self-compassion. And I think it's something, that is great. It very much aligns to your brand, but also I think even just generally, like in the vegan or animal rights world, we're so compassionate towards other beings that sometimes we personally might struggle. Like you said, if we're not looking after ourselves, how can we help others, especially animals? So it's really great that you've touched on that. And I noticed there's a bit of a trend throughout some of your posts and things about that, which is great.
100%. Thank you. Yeah, no, completely. It's almost so overwhelming. It can get so overwhelming when we think deeply about the impact of just animal agriculture on so many different levels. And it's almost like you feel your heart quickening, your throat rising up, and like heart rising up to your throat, whatever the quote is. Like it's just such a it just feels like such a pit of despair sometimes, that honestly, like it's like what use do I have? I'm like, you almost feel so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But this idea of like even if you are just one person, even if you just save one animal's life, it's to the world it may not seem like much, but to that animal it's their whole entire life. It's it means the world to them. So yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard.
Yeah, it can seem overwhelming, like you said, but I think it's great, to also have this beautiful community that we do, that we can reach out to each other and draw inspiration, or even a bit of motivation from other people at times where we may not feel it, and vice versa. So
definitely,
yeah. And I guess something that may be a little, I don't know, controversial, but I'd love to get your thoughts on is, this aspect around things like, especially in food, whether it be packaging or food products itself, is, this concept of like sustainable or sustainability. So I guess, is that something that you've kind of considered in your products, or, how do you think, is that an achievable sort of thing in with food and packaging?
Are you referring to packaging specifically, or food as well?
Oh, both. I'd love to know your thoughts on
Okay.
both. Yeah.
It's specifically related to my business.
Oh, like happy for you to give examples. I just mean, just in general, I'm just really intrigued because I think it's often sustainable, like in different things, whether it be like, fashion or homewares, like food. It's something that's kind of, I guess, can be used as a bit of a marketing term, but I'd be really interested to know from the inside, like from yourself, from, you building your product and your brand, like how can you make that actually, realistic in real terms, rather than just a slang sort of phrase to throw around.
Yeah, right. Well, it's it's actually really funny. This almost might open a can of worms, but I made a post on LinkedIn not too long ago. It happened to coincide with Earth Day, and I was basically talking about animal agriculture purely from an ecological, environmental perspective. And I was basically saying, like, look, if we're getting our calories and our source of protein, whatever it is, through another being, that is highly inefficient. Like, just purely, like, in terms of ecology 101, that's just, we're wasting a whole lot of energy doing that. And that's not just energy, that's also land use, water use, deforestation, like greenhouse gas emissions. There are so many things that come under that umbrella. I am not entirely sure how, but that triggered basically the entirety of the meat and livestock industry of Australia. I had the Board of Dairy Australia. I had beef and lamb farmers. I had and like basically everyone in between those two sort of borders be very upset at me and start calling me, or not necessarily calling me, just like commenting things in a rather patronizing tone, I'd say, which yeah, like honestly, I was basically making that post because I had along with some colleagues at my past work published a white paper talking about how we need to think about more secure food systems, and for sustainability is a massive, indicator of creating strong, resilient supply chains. And yeah, it was just honestly alarming to see such backlash almost. But it's yeah, it was interesting. I almost at the end made it so that it was a platform and an opportunity for education, I think. So if there was anyone that stumbled upon this post, because it ended up getting quite a few views, that they could see that, okay, people were clearly riled up, but also I try to make sure that there were as much evidence supported and backed responses to all of their replies as well. So yeah.
Wow.
It's definitely a very touchy topic within the industry.
Yeah. I'm guessing, did you have any, or have you had any, I suppose, pushback from like dairy industry around calling your product like cheese? Like I know that's something especially overseas, has been quite an issue. I'm not sure if it's such an issue here in Australia.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I mean, I think I'm still far too small for anyone to take real notice. But certainly I know, for instance, Miyoko's in the US, she went through a massive lawsuit trying to call one of her products, I think it may have been cheddar or something, I can't quite remember what it was, but yeah, quite frankly, it's probably a good thing, and a point on the vegan side, if meat and dairy like the meat and dairy industry are kind of threatened by the fact that 1% of the population is calling their alternative products, or using the same term as them. But
yeah. Yep.
I guess it's like a growing trend that they're scared of, which is I guess wonderful news.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, if the Australian oat supply is pretty much down and out due to oat milk,
exactly.
that's a great sign. So we can't complain.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, yeah, vegan Sarah is over the moon. Like, she's like, woohoo, this is awesome. Yeah.
Exactly. And do you have any plans of anything? I mean, I know you're doing a lot at the moment, but is there anything that you would like to share about, anything up and coming for yourself or for the brand?
So we are expanding our production line, and yeah, I guess if the intention is for this product to hopefully reach retail shelves near you guys. Your listeners are probably one of the best target audiences that I could ask for. So yeah, if anyone has suggestions of where they'd like to see us stocked, or even cafes or restaurants, or if you live in a work in a workplace, work somewhere that's a bit of a work somewhere that does catered food or anything, yeah, please head over to our website and fill out that form, because that just lets me know of what other potential areas you'd like to see us stocked at. Yeah, but otherwise, any other plans? Gosh, I'm so down in the bogs with this business at the moment. I don't really think about much else.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you have any advice for anyone that's looking at starting up a vegan business?
I don't know if it's wise of me to say, but I would almost advise against doing a cold freighted food product that has a relatively short shelf life and a very intense R&D process.
You only know these things now, Sarah. So
Oh no,
you've learned something.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's God, it's been such a roller coaster, but yeah, honestly though, we I guess to start a business and to start a to have a business that thrives, as much as we have that sort of moral and ethical stance driving us, it does at the end of the day need to be financially feasible as well. And one quote that one of my advisors was telling me was, Sarah, you're not running a charity here. I was like, yes, I need to bear that in mind. So I guess it's kind of like doing your due diligence, making sure that there is a market out there, making sure that people are ready and willing to pay for that product, or whatever that means of exchange it may be. Usually it is financial, but it could be something else as well. Finding good market fit, and then understanding your sales, your business model, your sales strategies, all of that stuff, as nitty gritty as it is, as annoying as it is. And we all want to see thriving vegan businesses in a sort of community that's in an ecosystem that supports each other, but the only way that we can do that is to, at least in this economy, to make sure that we are financially stable and feasible, and it has legs that it can stand on itself. Which is something that I've had to really come to grips with, because so far it's really been driven by passion and morals and everything. So yeah.
And so if people do want to support you and they're not based in Sydney, is there some way for us to support you? Is it at the moment, is it really just about us asking for it in like vegan stores and delis and things, or what's the best way for us to support you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I'm not sure what the equivalent of, I guess, like Harris Farms up here in Sydney would be, but if there's like a sort of slightly more artisanal sort of version of Coles or Woolies down in Melbourne or Brisbane or wherever you guys are located, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, yeah, I'm such a newbie to Instagram, actually. So any sort of recipe ideas that you guys would like to see, or behind the scenes, or stories, or Q&As, or whatever it is that you would like, please do let me know as well. That would be awesome.
Can people buy direct from you or not?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have always had people wanting to buy direct from me, but unfortunately, I still have not figured out cold freight on a base, like on a small scale basis. Like you can definitely ship big pallets of stuff in cold freight, but I don't think many people would want a whole pallet of oat cream cheese arriving at the door, nor do I have the capacity to make that much just quite yet. Hopefully soon though, hopefully soon.
Yeah, awesome. It's a bit of a watch this space, so that's exciting.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, no, if people are interested, the sort of contact form and sign up form is on our website. Otherwise, feel free to DM me for any ideas or anything on Instagram. That's the two main areas. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I'll link all that in the show notes so that people can find your website and also your Instagram, because like you said, it's great to see the different recipes and ways people are being really creative with your product.
Yeah, it's honestly the one of the fun parts of this business. Like, it's my creative outlet.
Definitely. Now, is there anything we might have missed before we finish up, Sarah?
Um, I think you've probably covered most of things. Yeah, I guess just keep your eyes and ears peeled. Hopefully we'll get some more cream cheese out to you guys soon. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
look forward to it. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. It's been great to hear your personal journey and also how you've gone so far in this business. And it's really exciting that I'm sure it's going to grow, and we can't wait to be able to support you, especially here in Victoria. So look forward to it.
Thank you so much. Cheers,
Thank
Alicia.
you.